Okay, we're going to take a look at the Spanish Army and Blood and Bayonets. What's on the screen right now is a Spanish line unit, 16 figures with full command, meaning officer, flag bearer, and drummer. They are inexperienced, which a lot of the Spanish line units are inexperienced, but you can pay points to make one Spanish line unit in your force trained. So it gives it more actions when train cards come out when you're activating units. You can also take a special commander that allows you to bring 2 trained units. This unit is supposed to represent the El Rey division, the King division, with like kind of lavender, lavender on their cuffs and lapels, their facings. The Spanish Army is very interesting. I really like the Spanish Army, how it looks. I've always been kind of attracted to it because of the uniforms. The uniforms are almost like a throwback to the previous century. As the war progressed, they became their uniforms changed. As the British started supplying them more uniforms, they were more cut in the British style and more simplified. Like simplified British uniforms, not without all the lace and stuff like that. And they started to take on more blues overall. So this unit here, as I said, is inexperienced. It's a little more challenging to control an inexperienced unit in Blood and Bayonets. They get less actions, but that being said, they cost a lot less points. So you can take more guys for less points, but then they're not as effective. So if you have a good commander, if you have good command and control, good support for them, because they have a pretty high resolve value. It's a 7, so they really need to be supported. You can keep them functioning, and if they fire a volley with this number of guys, that's 16 shots. It's 16 minus 3 for the specialists, the flag bearer, the drummer, and the officer. But you add 3 for the volley fire, so you'd fire a full 16 shots. So even if you're not very good at shooting, if you're rolling that many dice, you start getting hits on your opponent. I'm going to show you another unit of Spanish that I painted up. They're supposed to represent the Elmira regiment. Let me pause for a second and get those guys up on the screen for you. Okay, here's the second line regiment. I have them painted up as the Elmira regiment. As you notice, they're wearing like top hats, which is one of the headgears that the Spanish wore throughout the peninsula during the period. Their uniforms changed and progressed as their army changed and progressed throughout the conflict. Touch a note on the drummer. As I said earlier, the drummer works the same in all. They can re-roll a resolve roll. The flag allows you to re-roll a rally roll. The officer is pretty important in the Spanish units. If you take an officer, you negate the special rule poor leadership. By negating that special rule, as it is now, without an officer, Spanish unit would have to roll a die whenever they receive a command point, and I believe it's 4 or better. If they fail on a 1, 2, or 3, they don't understand the command, and you lose the command point. So that's supposed to simulate, how poor the Spanish leadership overall was. I mean, there were obviously some leaders that were better than others, but overall the Spanish army didn't perform that well in this period. But the other thing the officer gives you is by taking that upgrade, the unit gains Ruthless, which is pretty powerful. Ruthless special rule basically says that if the unit with Ruthless is attacking another unit, either in melee or by shooting at them, and they have more fatigue than the attacking unit, their target number to hit becomes 1 better. So say if they needed an 8 to hit, it would go to a 7, or a 7 to a 6. So that's the second line unit. I painted up 2 line units for my Spanish army, one because I really like Spanish, and 2, with inexperienced units with such low points, you're going to need at least a couple. These miniatures are 3D printed by me. I can't remember the name of the company I got them from. I got them from my mini factory just by searching 28 millimeter Spanish Peninsula War miniatures, and they came up. Fortunately, Perry Brothers just released or just announced they were going to release a box of Spanish plastics, which are going to have grenadiers and different head swaps and all kinds of cool ways to make stuff. And I've seen people kind of kit bash them to make representations of other factions like Neapolitans and all kinds of stuff. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm going to get a box or two of those guys. So from now, we're going to go check on some Spanish grenadiers. Okay, next up is a unit of 8 Spanish grenadiers. As you can see, it's just 8 guys. They have no upgrades, no flag, no drummer, no officer. You can add those upgrades to them if you want. Spanish grenadiers are trained, so you have a little bit more tactical ability with them. They also, which is really important for them, is they support line units near them. So if you have a Spanish line unit inexperienced with a resolve of 7, if they're near the grenadiers, they become a 6. If you have an officer within command range, they become a 5. And if you've given them a drummer, they get a reroll in when taking a resolve test. So that can take a potentially resolve of 7 unit, which is pretty low chance of passing them all the way down to a 5 with a reroll. But it's up to you if you want to not support your line units with your grenadiers and send your line unit off on its own. It might not fare that well, but you might have to do it and take the gamble. So that's a unit of 8 Spanish grenadiers. They can go from 8 to 16, just like a line unit. You can make them really big. Obviously, it'll cost more points to do that. So from there, we're going to start looking on at some of the other units in the Spanish Army. Here I have a unit of 12 Spanish light dragoons, light cavalry. They do 2 impact hits, so on the charge they get an extra 2 attacks. Their commander, by having an officer, negates the poor leadership rule, as I said before, and having a trumpeter also gives them reroll and resolves. Plus, by having the officer, they gain ruthless, so ruthless can be really powerful if you set it up right. The models themselves are Perry Brothers British Light Dragoons because they didn't in plastic. So I kind of cobbled these together. I gave them the Tarlington helmets, which was the four back kind of crested helmet. Painted them in the Spanish style of canary yellow jackets. It's not an exact copy of their actual some of the horse furniture might be a little off, and the fact how the horses tails are kind of bobbed on them, but I think they're a close enough approximation to work on the battlefield. Plus, who doesn't like yellow and red cavalry? It looks pretty neat. They are inexperienced, so they are harder to control. The Spanish cavalry was probably the weakest arm in the Spanish army at this time. They were, undersupplied with horses and support. And it showed. Their cavalry was pretty weak. That being said, though, the scale of Blood and Bayonets allows you to take a small unit of cavalry, which I think would be reasonable that you could locate, that amount of mounted Spanish troopers. So here you go. That's 12 Spanish light dragoons. Okay, this is a Spanish cannon or artillery piece. The Spanish gunners were by far the best in the Spanish army. They were notorious for refusing to leave their guns, and they'd fight them to the bitter end. To represent this, they are veterans in Blood and Bayonets, which gives you more actions on the higher going or earlier going suits like spades and hearts. They also gain the reload because their artillery crew on a spade or a heart plate on them. They are tenacious, and they don't. They're hard to get rid of. They have high morale, and they also can. They have a good base number for their shoot test. The miniatures are Perry miniatures. They're medals, Perry Brothers miniatures medals. I had to order them. A friend of mine got them for me. 4 figures and a cannon mounted on a 60 mil base. There is counter battery fire, as I mentioned before. They can skip shots, but they only do it D10 divided by 2. And obviously they have grape shot. So that's the Spanish canon. We're going to move on to the command group. Okay, what I have here is my command group for the Spanish. As I said before, all commanders have a 6-inch command range. They're on foot with 3, just regular infantrymen with them, but you could pay for upgrades as you upgrade your command group. It can, buff your command range. So in this instance, the commander's mounted, so the command range goes to 7 inches. He has a drummer. It goes to 8 inches. He has a flag bearer, goes to 9 inches. And then the one with the brown jacket I'm using as an aide de camp. So then it goes to 10 and 11 inches. 1, because he's an aide de camp. 2, because he's mounted. The commander in the green jacket and the aide de camp, who's also could be a commander in the brown jacket, are Perry's medals. And the other miniatures in the group are 3D prints from as the same guy I got the line from and the grenadiers from earlier. Spanish commanders are trained. There are some special commanders that can give you benefits to your army. There are a bunch of special characters listed throughout the whole force. There's upgrades to units. There's upgrades to a cannon crew that can, make your force better on whole, or you can make it, work in different ways. I want to reiterate again that all these forces can be intermixed. Like you can have a British force with Spanish in it. You can have Portuguese force with Spanish in it, or you can run a purely Spanish force. Can you win with a purely Spanish force? Absolutely. Is it a little more challenging? It can be, because you're dealing with a lot of inexperienced units over trained and veterans. Obviously, if you're running an all-trained force, that's the kind of middle of the road, so you'll get a good amount of activations, and it'll be a little easier to mitigate, running out of activations and not being able to do whatever you want. But if you a little more savvy player control the Spanish force effectively, they just have to pay more attention and plot out their turn a little bit better. Maybe bring a little bit higher commander to kind of offset that, but you'll have the points to do it. So you can bring a commander with 3 command points and then a bunch of inexperienced forces, and your command points can offset that. That being said, if your commander gets removed from the game, then you're probably going to have a problem. The ultimate goal of Blood and Bayonets is not to create any force that's overwhelming over any other force. Everyone should have an equal opportunity to win. But that being said, if you design a poorly designed force, you're going to put yourself in a harder situation to win. But inherently, historicals are like that. A French soldier and a British soldier and even a Spanish soldier to an extent are all trained on similar levels. They're all just as brave as each other. They might have worse support or worse command or better command and better support, but their functionality's similar in a lot of levels, so that should level out when you play historical miniature games. So that's the Spanish force in a wrap. I'm going to show a couple of other pictures at the end of some of the other units that I have in the Spanish force that I don't have models for, and some of the really unique uniforms. And these can be taken as support units from the Corps. So I have the Irish unit, which has really cool light blue jackets with yellow facings. I have the Spanish had Swiss units, which are blue with red facings. And then they had the Walloons, which are Spanish forces from Belgium. They were picked from Belgian Catholics, because in history, the Spanish Netherlands, which is what we would call Belgium now, are basically was controlled by the Spanish for a long time. So they got troops there. The Walloons had a really unique kind of cartridge belt pouch, which you'll see in the photo or the picture of the illustration that I'm going to put up. So I'm going to put those 3 illustrations up now so you can get an idea. A couple of them are pictures of reenactors. One of them is a drawing. So you get an idea of some of the other options in there. I put a little tag on them so you know what you're looking at. And other than that, we're going to wrap this one up. I'm going to try to do the other couple factions we have, the Guerrillas and then potentially the Portuguese. So that being said, take a look at the other pictures coming up and check it out.